My name is Alka, and I wrote a book called The Henna Artist. This is an imagining of what my mother's life could have looked like had she not had all of the cultural restraints that she had to live under. What if, at the beginning of her marriage, before the 3 children came, she could have abandoned the marriage and she could have re-emerged in another city and done what? And I imagined that because she was so creative, she could have become a henna artist. She had the personality and the forbearance to be able to do this work beautifully and to enlist the trust and confidence of her clients. So I want to read to you from the very first chapter of The Henna Artist. Jaipur, state of Rajasthan, India, November 1955. Independence changed everything. Independence changed nothing. 8 years after the British left, we now had free government schools, running water, and paved roads. But Jaipur still felt the same to me as it had 10 years ago, the first time I stepped foot on its dusty soil. On the way to our first appointment of the morning, Malik and I nearly collided with a man carrying cement bags on his head when a bicycle cut between us. The cyclist was hugging a 6-foot ladder under his arm and caused a horse carriage to sideswipe a pig who ran squealing into a narrow alley. At one point, we stepped aside and waited for a raucous band of hijras to pass. The sari-clad, lipstick-wearing men were singing and dancing in front of a house to bless the birth of a baby boy. So accustomed were we to the odors of the city, cow dung, cooking fires, coconut hair oil, incense, and urine, that we barely noticed them. What Independence had changed was our people. You could see it in the way they stood, chest puffed, as if they could finally allow themselves to breathe. You saw it in the way they walked, purposefully, pridefully, to their temples, the way they haggled more boldly than before with the vendors in the bazaar. Another thing that Independence never changed was the Indian cuisine. And the British never changed it either. In fact, they fell in love with it, as did the rest of the world. Here is a scene where Lakshmi is visiting the Sharma residence. Mrs. Sharma is one of her clients. And because Lakshmi is a Brahmin, she is able to navigate the elite of Jaipur very easily. But also because she doesn't have a husband and she has no children, she is a little bit lower than the caste that she was born into. So in this passage I'm about to read, she is in the kitchen and talking to the cook. Several burners were in use, and the heady fragrance of fried cumin, garlic, and onions filled the kitchen. Mrs. Sharma's cook, a broad woman with coarse hands, was separating the atta into tiny balls that she would later roll into samosa pastry. A younger woman sat cross-legged on the floor. She cradled a stainless steel bowl in which she was mixing boiled potatoes with peas and masala for the mixture that would go inside the samosas. The back door had been propped open to let the cooking heat out. If you've never sampled samosas, if you've never been to an Indian restaurant, you are in for a treat, because today I am going to make samosas the way my mother made them. And you guys get to watch. I wish you were here and you could actually participate with me and help me roll some of the pastry and help me put the little balls of potato and pea mixture together. But let's go to my kitchen and see what we can do. So here we are in my kitchen, and I have prepared my mise en place, which is just a fancy way of saying I've got all my ingredients together on one tray. So here is my tray. Here are all the ingredients that I'm going to put in samosas. Now, people make samosas in all kinds of different ways. Usually they always have potatoes, they always have peas. But for example, my mother used to put in onions and garlic, which is why I put that in the henna artist. I have so many references to food in the henna artist just because You know, food is such a big part of our culture. I have a little bit of dry pepper flakes, some garam masala. I'm gonna put in fennel seeds. Now, some people don't put in fennel seeds, but we always did, so I'm gonna do that. And then there's cumin. And usually, I think most people do put in cumin, but some people don't. If you hear the tap, 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 that's my little dachshund down here. He's walking along the kitchen floor. This is coriander powder. My mother used tons of coriander powder in everything, and so do I. Salt and black pepper, the whole peas that are going to go in the samosa mixture, and lots of cilantro. Most recipes intended for the West will say 1 tablespoon of cilantro, 1 teaspoon of cilantro. Now, I just don't think you can go wrong with putting a lot of cilantro in your food because it's such a tasty kind of flavor ingredient. It's just yummy. And then, like I said, you know, some people don't put in onions, but my mother did. And I like red onions because they add a little bit of color to the mixture. Then, of course, we put in garlic, which, you know, some people don't do, but I chop up garlic to do that. And then from my own tree, we have lemon juice. So a little bit of lemon juice that'll go in the mixture. And then, of course, there's a tray for you to put your rings because as you are mixing up all of this stuff, you're using your hands a lot and you don't want all that stuff to get in your rings. I have boiled potatoes and I stopped just shy of mashing them because you don't want to have goopy potatoes. You want to have potatoes with a little bit of texture in them. And then the last thing is your samosa pastry. And this is what atta is. I make a lot of references to atta in the Henna Artist because you make so many things out of atta. You make chapatis and puris and naan. Naan has atta with some yogurt. A woman who is used to cooking all the time will become a very much of an expert in mixing her own atta her own way. So this is a mixture of flour and oil, a little bit of salt, and then you start adding water little by little to get the texture that you're looking for. And the texture can't be goopy. It has to be a little hard. It just makes a delicious pastry. So these are all of my ingredients. And then I want to show you something. This is a particular vessel found in India that you use to fry things in. So it has handles so that you can easily pick it up and put it down. And it keeps the oil contained in the little vessel. And it's a delight because it was my mother's, so I get to use it. A lot of people bake now instead of frying, but I gotta tell you, it just tastes better fried. So many things taste better fried. And I've read, you know, all of these recipe books and cookbooks, and Mom and I love to watch these Indian cooking shows. And Indians love their fried food. So we've got samosas, we've got puris, we've got all these snacks, the kind of snacks that Lakshmi is always making in the Henna Artist. Those are salty, savories that usually are fried because they just taste better that way. So let's get started on the mixture. By the way, just to lend some good magic to what we're doing today, I'm wearing my mother's Mangal Sutra. Now, this is in lieu of wedding rings. This is what all South Asian ladies used to wear. These are tiny little black beads interspersed with little gold pieces. And my mother always envied the Mangal Sutras of the South Asians, even though we're from the north of India. And so she always coveted one of these, and she finally bought herself one in India a long time ago. So I think what I'm wearing right now is probably over 50 years old. I used to, when I was younger, ask my mother as she was cooking, I'd say, okay, now, how much of this are you putting in? How much of the coriander powder? How much of the hing? How much of the cumin? And she would be a little perplexed because she'd be like, well, I don't know, I just use this much. And she would indicate with her hand, you know, like this much, I'll just throw this in. This much, I'll throw that in. And then I'll taste it. And if it's not right, then I'll throw more of something else in. So I think Indian food is very much sort of a flexible art. And so you can put as much or as little of whatever you want as possible. And it'll all turn out just fabulous anyway. In the north, they use fewer hot chilies. In the south, they eat a lot of hot chili. There are people in India who don't eat any root vegetable, and that includes onions and garlic. So there are people who make everything taste fabulous without onions and garlic. In my family, we always ate onions and garlic. And in the henna artists, I almost put in that Lakshmi was making some of the spices with a lot of garlic, because in some areas, garlic is considered an aphrodisiac. I almost put that in, but then I thought, you know, maybe people will be a little like, ooh, I don't know, I don't consider garlic an aphrodisiac. So I changed it to parsley instead, which is fine. It's a breath freshener. I have some sandalwood incense going in the background, just to also lend us a little more magic and good luck. So now I'm ready to add the leaves of cilantro, which always go last because they don't get cooked as much, so that their flavor is maintained throughout the cooking process. My mixture is now ready, and I'm going to start rolling out the dough. If you don't want to make your own dough, you can always use puff pastry. It's not quite the same flavor. It'll definitely be a flakier samosa, and it won't be quite Indian, but it saves you a big step. So now I have made my little balls of dough into little flat pancakes, and I'm rolling them out to make them about yay big. And then I'm gonna fill that with the samosa mixture and then seal it and then fry it. This whole thing takes like hours, which is why people don't make a lot of samosas at home. It's actually easier to buy them at a restaurant. But if you want to try your own and put your own spin on it, this is the way to go. Oh, by the way, this is my mother's rolling pin too. You guys, I totally forgot to show you me frying this stuff. Generally, I don't fry anything because I'm very accident prone when it comes to cooking. So I can easily slice a finger or burn my entire hand or, you know, whatever. Here is my finished product. Now, it doesn't look as professional as like the restaurants serve, but I'll tell you it's gonna taste just as good, and we will check with my husband to see. Oh, Brad, honey.
Yeah?
Come on down. This is my husband, Brad. We've been married for 25 years. This year will be our 25th.
This year?
Okay. So I made a dip for Brad with a mixture of mayonnaise, yogurt. Yogurt really cuts the heat, habanero sauce, and then a little bit of fig jam. Because sweet and sour is a great way to eat samosas or any kind of Indian savories. So let's try one. Is it good? You know I told him to say that. Well, good. So you'll be eating most of these, I think, I imagine, right?
You keep talking, I'll be eating.
So thank you so much for reading the Henna Artists. There are more recipes in the back of the book, and I urge you to try one of them. And I think either you're going to want to eat a lot after you read the book, or you're going to take yourself down to your kitchen and try to make something Indian. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon and hear from you if you are reading the book. Thanks so much. Bye.